Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to speak to you about some developments in employment law. It's been a busy year for employment law, particularly with family-friendly legislation. This may not be relevant necessarily to your business, but obviously you get to chat to people who are employed. So just remember these little tips when I go through them with you. So the first new protection that's coming into force is quite an interesting one. It relates to pregnancy and redundancy. So at the moment, only those on maternity leave are protected under redundancy legislation. So this extends protections from day one that an individual tells their employer that they're pregnant, through to 18 months after the birth of that child. So it's obviously increased a lot from just the maternity leave or shared parental leave period. And it ensures that individuals are protected in that they are offered suitable alternative employment over and above anybody else who may be on maternity leave, or who may be at risk of redundancy. So those on maternity leave, those who are pregnant, and those coming back from maternity leave 18 months after the birth of their child will be protected with that. And that comes into force in April of this year. Next is the neonatal care leave and pay. So this is for when a mother or a parent has a newborn who is in need of neonatal care, and they will be entitled to up to 12 weeks paid leave, in addition to any other leave that they have, such as maternity leave or shared parental leave. That's got a lot longer lead in, and that will be in April 2025. So we've got that coming into force next year. Next is the Carers Leave Act of 2023. And that is a provision for those who have caring responsibilities to take a week off unpaid. I'm not sure how valuable that will be for individuals, but it does allow them to have that extra week off, but it's not paid. And that will be in force from this April. And the leave can be taken in a block of 1 week or in chunks, but it has to be at least half a day for that leave to be taken. And interestingly, the employee doesn't actually need to tell their employer who they're caring for or why they need to take that week off. But they must be caring for either a spouse, civil partner, child, person, parent, or person who lives with them who requires care. The next new piece of legislation is quite sensitive, but I think it's really important, and that's parental bereavement leave and pay. And this entitles people who may have unfortunately lost a child under the age of 18 or had a stillbirth after 24 weeks of pregnancy to take 2 weeks off with pay after the death or the stillbirth. That 2 weeks can be taken together in one chunk, or it can be taken as 2 separate weeks. Or if that individual just wants 1 week, that's okay too. The leave can start at the death or the stillbirth, but must finish within 56 weeks of the death or stillbirth. Otherwise, unfortunately, it will be lost. Obviously, those individuals may be on other types of leave, such as shared parental leave or statutory maternity leave. And if that's the case, then that leave must finish before they're entitled to take the bereavement leave. And if it's interrupted, and that might be even if they're on maternity leave for another child. And if the leave is interrupted by another type of leave starting, such as maternity leave starting just after the death or the stillbirth, then that leave must again be completed before the bereavement leave can be taken. It must be taken 56 weeks after the death or the stillbirth, and otherwise it might be lost, and that's even if it's been interrupted by other leave. When an individual's on shared parental leave, they can take that in blocks and they can share that block of leave with their partner, and this bereavement leave can be taken in between those blocks. if they are entitled to take that sort of leave, then they are entitled to pay, and it's £172.48 or a week, or 90% of their average weekly wages, and that will be subject to tax and national insurance deductions. Flexible working. Currently, obviously people are aware of the flexible working rights. Currently, you have to be employed for 26 weeks before you can make an application for flexible working, to change the ways in which you work, say part-time or working from home. But as of April of this year, that will be a day one right. So you can apply from the first day of employment. Currently, you can only make one application every 12 months. That's likely to change to 2 applications. And instead of having to wait for 3 months before you get a response from your employer, you can get a response much quicker now, and it's in 2 months. And there's no requirement for you to explain the impact of the leave being granted on the business. So it's a lot easier for people to apply for that. And finally, this is actually in force already. This is relating to rehabilitation of offenders, and this came into force in October last year. And it now means that anyone with a criminal conviction, the period in which the conviction is spent, and therefore they don't have to declare it to their employer, has been reduced quite substantially. First of all, if you've got a sentence of over 4 years, previously that was never spent. So you'd always have to declare it to your employer, but now it's 7 years. It will be spent after 7 years, and then after that period, you won't need to declare it. But serious offences such as serious violence, sexual and terrorism offences will never be spent, so they'll always need to be declared. If there's a custodial sentence of up to 2 years, 2.5 years, or to 4 years, then that's spent after 4 years now. It used to be 7 years. Anything related to a custodial sentence of 1 year to 2.5 years remains the same. You have to declare it up to 4 years after the conviction. And going down to any conviction up to 6 months, that used to be 2 years before it was spent, and now that's a year. So it's been reduced quite substantially. So it's making it easier for people to get into work. So that was my whistle-stop tour of the updates. And if you have any questions, please let me know.
That was really interesting, Judy. Like you say, there has been quite a lot going on, hasn't there, in the updates? I found it particularly interesting, the conviction spent slide there as well.
Yeah, I think that's just it's important so that people aren't prevented from working. Obviously, we need to ensure that people are able to pay their way in, not relying on benefits. So that really helps, I think.